You're listening to Built to Convert, the podcast where growth-minded marketers, founders, and creators come to level up. No hype, no guesswork, just bold insights that drive results. Let's go.
Welcome to Built to Convert, the podcast where we explore how strategy, analytics, and creativity come together to drive meaningful growth. I'm your host, Tyler Lane, founder of Session Interactive. Each episode, we sit down with marketers, founders, and operators who are building real momentum inside today's most interesting companies. This episode is brought to you by Session Interactive, the performance marketing agency for brands that are serious about SEO, paid media, and analytics. If your internal team needs extra horsepower or strategy using sharper insights, we help B2B, B2C, and a variety of other brand verticals drive measurable revenue and with less guesswork. Learn more at sessioninteractive.com. All right. Classic podcaster line, right? Where we go in. I'm excited. Always. Sarah Foley, everyone. Director of Brand Marketing at the University of Denver, commonly known as DU here in Colorado. Joining us today, longtime connection. I think I'd like to say friend as well. Joining us. Sarah's built a career at the intersection of design, digital strategy, and organizational leadership, and now leads brand marketing inside of one of the most complex long funnel environments there is, higher ed. In this episode, we're going to unpack how brand engagement and affinity actually drive growth when ROI is hard to measure, how brand health can be monitored over time, and what long funnel marketers in any industry can learn about from higher ed. So some good stuff here. Sarah, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Happy to be here. Awesome. I love my cliche response back to your line.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. We got it. Hey, I love starting these episodes just establishing a little bit of career credibility, if you will. I'd love to give you a background. I've always been impressed, and I mentioned this earlier before we started recording, is around the agency background and then your transition to higher ed. I'd love for you to just kind of give us a little bit of background on what you've been up to the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of, as you mentioned, I started my career in graphic design. I was a early designer, got my degree at Syracuse University. And most people who graduate from upstate New York either go the Great Migration down to New York City or out to LA. And neither of those things were in the cards for me. I grew up outside New York City. I love it, but knew it wasn't a place that I was going to be able to kind of call home. So by one way or the other, found my way out to Colorado and got my first, what I like to call, big girl job at a small higher ed art and design college here, right behind Casa Bonita, called Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design. And it really opened my eyes to the complexities and the intricacies of not just what good design can do. I was a junior graphic designer, but all of the things that go into decision making when you're looking to buy something, right? But there was always that itch, that agency itch of, oh, how cool would it be if I was in this agency and I got to play ping pong and I got to, and the dichotomy between working on one brand in-house versus switching your day-to-day and going between industries and being more of that kind of jack of all trades, master of none, of going between B2B to B2C to CPG and all of that kind of stuff in one day. And so when my tenure at RemCAD ended, I moved into an account management role at Carbonate, what was then Carbonate, a little agency here in Denver that specialized mostly in web and digital and development. And it was also at that juncture that I realized that, gosh, being creative for a full-time job for a living is really hard. It's really exhausting. And there was a type A part of me that wasn't being fulfilled in design work. And so I switched to the account side. And I loved it. And I learned so much because I got to work with the design team, kind of where my roots were, but also the web team and the development team and the digital marketing team who was handling our SEO and PPC clients at the time, and video production and all that kind of stuff. And so agency life really taught me two things. One, I really enjoyed being part of that holistic service offering and not just in design. But two, that agency life was not for me.
Mm.
I was craving being able to really dive deeper into one brand that I cared about. And also in agency life, especially as an account manager, you kind of get uh, a contract signed and slid across the table to you, and they say, here, this is your client now, you market this now. And there were just some things that didn't excite me, right? And also things that I didn't feel strongly about or passionate about. And so back to higher ed I went. Back to my higher ed roots. I was at Regis University for almost 5 years. Worked in admissions marketing, worked on the web team, got to kind of take what I learned in agency life and apply it to relaunching a new website for Regis, and then made my way back to my design roots and started managing the creative team as the director of brand strategy over there, overseeing the designers. And yeah, now I'm at DU, director of brand marketing. And my team and I are doing content and social media and paid media, and all of the things really with the intention of shaping the reputation of the university. One of my favorite things about my role and working at DU is that they have budget and prioritization for brand marketing, not enrollment marketing, not advancement and donations or athletics and the things that typically drive revenue, but really focused on marketing the university and painting the picture that is in people's minds when you close your eyes and someone says University of Denver or DU. Not every institution, not every company focuses on doing that. They focus on bottom lines and sales and leads and conversion rates and all that kind of stuff, which is all really important. But I love that in my day to day, what I get to do is tell stories and paint pictures that matter and ultimately influence whether or not you buy the thing.
Yeah. Such a fun kind of background and items to share. So many things to unpack there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to Mark Mitten at Carbonate, now Gravity Global. It's rebranded a number of times, and that's some formative years for you.
100%.
Just the ability, I think, right? The agency component. I love how you were transitioning from that other design firm into Carbonate and realizing like I have the opportunity to expand my knowledge significantly on a variety of brands, and then transitioning back to be like, I want to take one brand and really own it. Right.
Yeah.
It also brings up just the thought of brand marketing now that you're at DU. It's funny. I mean, I'm not going to talk about myself, but in my own experience around for years, I was like, what is brand marketing? Right.
Yeah.
You know, and it's amazing now, generative AI and so many different components within LLMs. And it's just like brand is becoming, it's always been essential. Right. And I totally agree with you. It's not been undermined, but deprioritized in a lot of places and still does. But I am seeing this like resurgence of the importance of a brand and the mentions and just the authority the brand makes. Let's go back a little bit in terms of your design experience and where that led you in terms of that foundation. I'd love for you to unpack a little bit around how that helped you transition from that designer into that account person at Carbonate first, and then ultimately those skills that you still probably use today, not necessarily as a practitioner, as a designer, but more as again, that fully immersed brand marketer. Talk to me about that. I'm curious.
For sure. I think brand and design are often very much tied at the hip, right? You look at a brand guide, and a brand guide typically contains your logo and your colors and your fonts and those visual indicators that whatever you're looking at is tied to a specific brand. And you think about the big players, right? Your Coca-Colas and the logo changes in Cracker Barrel and all of that kind of stuff. And I still love being in that world. But really, I think the thing that tips the scales for me is someone asked me once, what do you think is the either the coolest part or the most important part or what have you for design and design thinking? And I said, man, if someone would just redesign IRS tax forms, it'd be so much easier to do
Yeah,
your taxes.
sure.
And what that opened up in my mind is design as a tool,
Hmm.
design as a way to communicate effectively what you're trying to get at. And it's way more than the typefaces that you choose and the colors that you choose, but it's things like information hierarchy and design systems
Yeah.
and the words that ultimately get designed. So then I opened my eyes into um, copywriting and messaging
Mhm.
strategy. And the way that Carbonate really set me up for success was the account managers were heavily involved in not just scheduling meetings and taking notes and following up and all of that kind of stuff, keeping projects on track. But we were really in the trenches of what are we trying to say and what are we trying to do? And some of my favorite clients were the ones who came to us and said, we need a full kind of kit and caboodle refresh. And so we were thinking about things like tone and voice and big idea and the real holistic picture of
Mhm.
what it meant to not just give you a new website, but what are we going to say on that website? So started with design and the basic principles and tenets of good design and spacing and all that, and then went to messaging and really cut my teeth there. UX and digital experience and it every door seemed to open and continued to enthrall me.
Mm.
Um, and I think what the most exciting thing is that that's what a brand is, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And the it's a sum of all of those pieces. Now, what I've the kind of missing piece that has been uh, tied into my organizational leadership background, which is another part of my trajectory, is this concept of brand trust and brand loyalty. Um, and walking the talk. It's not enough to just put it on a website. If when you come and experience the brand or put something in your cart or call customer service and what they experience doesn't line up with what they
Of
were
course.
told on the
Hmm.
website and the impact that has on a brand. And so you look at these bigger names. If you're in the sphere, you know Patagonia, and you know what
Correct.
Patagonia stands for.
Hmm.
And you know Costco, and you know what Costco's doing, and you know those people who are now saying, "I'm going to wear my Costco card around my neck like Flava Flav's clocks." Like that is so powerful to be able to unlock something like that. And it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of risk tolerance and a lot of chutzpah to be able to do that. And I think that's where your strongest brands are coming out. It's the ones who are thinking about how their actions contribute to
Hmm.
their brand and their customer base and not just their marketing campaigns.
So difficult to just like the consistency, right? We've all been there, right? Of just maybe we experience a beautiful shopping experience online, and then you're absolutely right. The customer experience is terrible, right?
Terrible.
It's like
Yeah.
it was some misalignment. Let's selfish play here, just trying to get back to more of maybe the data a little bit
Yeah.
for brands specifically. It's well, what your industry in particular, a longer,
hmm
complicated, murky sales process, application flow, et cetera. For brand marketing, your particular division, clearly you have objectives, um, but how do you articulate or really monitor key performance indicators? Are you fixating around engagement? Or are you fixated around obviously it's like conversion components, but there's so many other departments that are fighting
Yeah.
for those metrics too, for their own attribution? Is it a collective system around demonstrating, after your first year, or, it doesn't matter in the actual time, but how would you judge that level of success in terms of, our brand has improved dramatically?
Yeah, it's a really complex place to be in when you're not in B2C. I mean, technically we are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not the same level of decision making of I'm going to buy from Gap instead of Old Navy, or
Exactly. Yeah.
It's an incredibly significant investment. It takes a long time and a lot of effort to explore and research and visit, and there's inherent privileges associated with that, and we definitely don't take that lightly. And then at the end of the day, we got to get butts and seats, right?
No doubt. No doubt.
There's enrollment goals and tuition dollars associated with those enrollment goals. Especially at DU, it's even more complicated by the fact that over 50% of the student body is graduate students rather than undergraduate students. And so you're marketing colleges within the university. That journey is much different at a graduate level versus just one brand. So it's very complicated. And I think a lot of long funnel B2C, quote unquote B2C brands, I think it's even more important to start thinking about brand marketing in those contexts, because the decision journey is so long. There's that many more opportunities to have touch points with potential students. And there's also that many more opportunities to kind of swing and miss. And if you're not thinking about that full funnel, somebody else is.
Oh, no doubt.
And so there's this balance between the Patagonias and the Costcos who get to make these bold statements, and see that kind of immediate social media uptick or that immediate return or that immediate reaction, versus higher ed, which is in a different position in the world and currently a very hot button topic in today's kind of socio-political conversations. What role should higher ed play? What role should higher ed not play? So there's this push-pull between what you should do or shouldn't do and what you need to do, which is keep the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why a lot of institutions don't invest or prioritize brand marketing, because it's sticky and complicated, and it's hard to prove value. It's hard to prove that ROI. The funnel is so long in and of itself, it takes almost even longer to see results from what your efforts are doing. So what's really exciting is at DU in particular, we are in kind of still very much beginning phases of this brand health monitoring program. And what we're doing is quarterly pulsing our target markets, where we're actively doing these kind of brand marketing campaigns, activations at the university level. The CTA is not apply now, it's not visit, it's just we're here. Some of our work doesn't even have a CTA on it, which just goes so deeply against the ingrained marketer soul, right?
How dare you?
I know. What are you going to track? So we have this monitoring program, and the primary kind of KPI, if you will, that we look at in each market on a quarterly basis is awareness. Because they can't love you if they don't know you exist. So we look at unaided awareness and we look at aided awareness, and we try to move that needle. And then when we feel like we've got to a point where our awareness levels are at a certain baseline based on market size and all of that kind of stuff, we start looking at sentiment and starting to move sentiment. We measure against 17 different competitors. We look at how strongly are we correlated with 32 different brand attributes that range from, quote unquote, has a great reputation to has really strong athletics to is making a difference in the world. And then some more of the kind of operational attributes of is financially attainable for me, is worth the value or is worth the money. All of those things that do drive decision making in the long term. But when you close your eyes and when someone says DU, what kind of picture comes to your mind and what do you associate the DU brand with?
Mm.
The first thing we got to do is know what people think, and then we can start to try and shape and paint that picture a little more intentionally.
Yeah, it sounds like this mixture of quantitative data, but obviously probably more qualitative in terms of gathering that insight from potential students to existing students to graduate and post grad and alumni, which is no easy feat. I'll go back to my earlier statement, just how we're seeing channel KPI, the evolution, and gone are these, not gone, but the KPIs are still around some of these vanity metrics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's even more so, how do we measure engagement? How do we fixate on conversion value?
Yeah.
I think for you, attribution has never been more difficult. And it's, probably fairly similar to what you're experiencing, but I love the health monitoring system component, because that can help at least that thematic percentage, right? You could be like, okay, it's directionally accurate what we're going off of, and here's where we're trying to improve this sentiment, which is really important too.
And it almost doesn't even, that's just scratching the surface. The really exciting part is we get data. It's self-reported, so it is tough to align that self-reported data with what like our CRMs are seeing and the actual raw conversion numbers and the application numbers and all of that kind of stuff. But we do ask both forward-looking and rear-looking questions. So we ask questions in our survey. How likely are you to do X, Y, and Z in the next 6 months? And also in the last 6 months, have you done a handful of these things? And it's every researcher's kind of worst nightmare is our population is the general population in each of these markets. We don't limit by age, household income. We ask everybody, and then we ask them kind of demographics on the back end, but we don't screen or narrow our pool for any of that. But what we can do because of this is take the slice of that data that says, in the past 30 days, have you seen anything from University of Denver? Have you had an experience with the brand? Whether that be an ad, or you've seen us in the news, or you've come to visit campus, or you've gotten something from us in the mail. You've watched a sports game, et cetera, et cetera. And we can filter out people who have seen things from us or seen us and people who haven't. And then we layer that on top of their likelihood data of how likely are you to apply, visit, donate, buy season tickets. Because again, we're not in prospective student, we're also in athletics revenue streams and advancement revenue streams and all of that kind of stuff. And then the difference we see between people who have had a touch point with us and the people who haven't, and the conversions among those population, that's our ROI.
That's amazing.
It's so cool.
I can just, your passion exuding it. I know would you say you're kind of still in the nascent stages of this health monitoring program? That said, what is anything that really surprised you right away when you started rolling this out, and once you put this program in place? And I think second part there is your ability and the amount of data that you're able to collect permeates the entire organization, right? So that's I'd love to hear maybe that too, is like, okay, what surprised you, and then was there a particular org or group of individuals that you probably never thought you would interact or engage with, and now you are because you have this amount of data and insights. I'm not saying that you have, but I'm curious.
I think honestly, actually, I think the most surprising part for me has been um, the longitudinal trends and patterns that we're seeing or not seeing. Um, and the legitimacy that it gives to the board of trustees, the executive cabinet, that you can't just go off of what you think or what you feel, which has been what we've been doing for so long.
So
And
long.
so I think one of the most surprising things has been the conversations that we've had around this data of, so one of the target audience or the target markets that we were in and still are in is Chicago. And Chicago is big. It's very competitive. We're not the only players in Chicago by any means. It's heavily saturated and it's expensive. If you want to make a drop in the bucket, you're going to pony up for it, right? And so the surprise has been, so we survey quarterly, and then our marketing flights are spring and fall, and the patience that's required to start to see the needle move. And how difficult it's been to know when to say when, of, is this working or not, or do we just need to give it some more time?
Sure.
And that's the brand development work that's inherently at odds with how many clicks did I get? How many views did I get? How many applications came out of this? What is that conversion rate? What's that cost per lead? All of that kind of stuff. You don't ask those questions until you're at least like a year and a half to 2 years in, especially in a big market like that, right? So that's been interesting to experience the counseling that I've been doing to myself of like, hold on, Sarah, like, we're not jumping to that conclusion yet, but also to external folks who now have data in front of them and want to react to that data. I think the surprising thing has been that some of it's been a little hard to swallow.
Sure.
And some of it has also been really validating. It's really nice to be able to say, and it's such a rare opportunity in the line of work that we're in. It's such a rare thing to be able to say, that's not supported by the data. And now we have the data.
Yeah. Do you find yourself with your agency roots, that was clear brand was a central item at Carbonate. We know that. However, we also know people, right? And we know their desire for immediate gratification. So when you're conducting like the health monitoring system, for example, versus there's a digital marketing engagement going on at DU that's fixated on enrollment, and they're getting the higher ups or individuals are getting the click data, getting the conversion data, and then it goes to you and it's longer data pulls, clearly a lot more convoluted. You're in charge to disseminate that information and hopefully, layman's terms. I imagine that there's some re-education internally, but also just like we need more time, or aware that this is still inconclusive at this point versus individuals that are used to getting that more immediate gratification through other digital marketing reports. Again, yours is not a digital marketing report. It's
not. And yeah, what's really interesting is this data set and this dashboard that we have, and huge shout out also to our partners over at Qualtrics and Y2 Analytics, who have been really empowering us to learn alongside them and figure out what all this means from a brand experience perspective. They've been super instrumental in kind of guiding, because the other thing I'll tell you is I am not, nor is anyone on my team, a market researcher. And so interpreting this data and figuring out, is my gut reaction correct when I'm looking at what I'm looking at? They've been super helpful in drawing those conclusions and helping us kind of identify meaningful and statistically significant trends and things like that. And suss out the garbage, right? Like there's sometimes you look at that and you're like, that's cool, but it does, you can't actually draw a conclusion from that. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is the data that we get is not intended to be the right measurement tool for everything. And so we still do Google Analytics, and we still do SEMrush, and we still do what are the engagement metrics in real time of the money that we've spent. What is our cost per lead? What is our cost per acquisition? Which channels are performing and not, creative A/B tests and all of that kind of stuff, because that is also really important to be able to make those agile decisions about where your dollars are going. We partner with our marketing teams in undergraduate admissions and graduate admissions to counsel and guide and steer on those things. And we look at them for sure. So when we talk about how does that impact us from a brand marketing perspective, the other thing that's really important is you can't shift gears too much in your brand health data, because the longitudinal that takes a lot of time is where the value is. And so if you've got a recruitment strategy that's focused on responding to market trends in a much more adaptable way, I can't be changing my sample set every time to monitor how we're doing in Salt Lake versus Savannah, Georgia. I need to keep my core markets really primary. So with all that being said, we're still doing exploratory campaigns and testing campaigns. But that's not we're not monitoring brand health in those markets quite yet, because we need to assess feasibility first. We need to assess, is interest there? Are we getting those clicks? Are we getting the time on page we want to see that would indicate potential interest for developing that market? And if yes, then that goes into our more long-term strategy. But again, that's not the kind of patient, calculated approach that a lot of executives and a lot of leaders in marketing are used to. My current senior vice chancellor has a really great phrase that he says, and he reminds us all of, which is, as fast as we can, as slow as we must. And taking that deep breath and saying, no, we got to give this some time, has been a challenge, but it's also been really rewarding to see the commitment and then the results that come out of that.
Love that. Obviously this is your second stint with a higher ed institution. We're obviously speaking from experience as well, working with a variety of large universities and colleges. How do you deal, or how do you work with kind of decentralized teams? Because we talked about this the other day and we met up for coffee, just around, you've got the business school, you've got the music or whatever. I'm making some random examples, but those different schools and colleges have different priorities and different goals and different strategies in a sense. So if you're taking some of I keep going back to the health monitoring system, some of these insights and trying to disseminate that to them, are you, I'm assuming that there's positive reception, but I'm also, is it overwhelming for them? One, is it, well, this is important, but we're going to, continue to focus in on our core strategy that we think to work. How do you insert yourself as, a clear leader, but also, hey, you got to take this serious, and this is really important, and we realize you have your own priorities, but here's something that perhaps is a bit higher up in terms of a priority.
I'm gonna go back a little bit and start pulling out my organizational leadership soapbox, which
Sure,
is
sure, yeah.
The infrastructure and the incentive structure of an organization dictates a lot about where priorities go, right? And so the decentralized nature of many institutions, many higher ed institutions at a university level, I think Regis is actually an exception to that rule, is almost, in my opinion, making the brand marketing work a little bit harder, because each of the units and each of the colleges and each of the schools has their own enrollment goals, and they have their own budget, and then they have their own brands, really. Daniels College of Business, Joseph Corbell School of Global and Public Affairs, Graduate School of Social Work, they are all talking to their own audiences who care about very different things and have different priorities and are different age groups and demographics and all that kind of stuff. And so you've splintered and segmented those audiences by necessity, but as a result, you've also built up structures within an organization that reward kind of doing your own thing and prioritizing your immediate goals and budget allocations and KPIs, not necessarily at the expense of the broader university, but sometimes in contrast with what the broader university is trying to do. And it's almost, you don't see it till it's too late. You think to yourself, well, you know, the Daniels College of Business is attracting business students and they have specific needs and wants and user journeys and all of that kind of stuff. And they should be responsible for their own enrollment. But when central university marketing comes in and says, hey, we want to kind of bring all of these schools together under the DU brand, after a certain point, there's no incentive to do that. And I think where my job becomes really important and has been one of the most difficult things for me to explain, even internally, of the value of brand marketing, is that it's my job to make your jobs easier. When you have a strong parent brand in market, when your parent brand has recognition, has loyalty, has affinity, it's that much easier for you as a sub brand to go in and convert. We talk about it in kind of like if you meet somebody at a bar, I'm your wingman, right? Like I'm your hype man. Like,
let's go.
No one, you know, if you walk up and you're like, hey, you want to get married? It's like, whoa.
You see.
Easy there. And so I try and come in and be like, hey, like there's a really great business school over there. Have you heard about all the cool things that we're doing?
Yes.
And it just, I'm really excited to see the progress that we've been making in that arena in particular, because organizationally, like I mentioned, those structures were not in place. And so we're trying to build those bridges. And so to bring it back to the data, there's actually a lot of skepticism around the data that I bring to the table. There's a lot of, okay, but what does that mean for me? Because these are university unit college level marketers who are responsible for butts and seats. They are responsible for hitting enrollment targets and tuition revenue targets, and people's jobs are on the line if that doesn't happen, right? Like it's a very real scenario. And so for me to come in and say, look at this cool thing that took 2 years, they're like, okay, like I have goals for 3 months from now.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, sweet, awesome. Which is why it's really important for those insights of in the last 30 days, if you've seen X from us, you're X more likely to take this action. That's the level of data integration that allows me to answer the question of, so what? Like, go do your cool, feel good ad. I'm over here, trying to sell a product, and getting those two to align is not always easy.
No.
Because it takes a long time for me to prove value. And I can only go to so many meetings where I'm like, give it more time.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, come on, Sarah.
Right. Okay, cool. But I believe in the work, and I'm really excited for the structures that I have kind of behind me who are also giving me that opportunity to prove value. And I'm going to keep pushing that boulder uphill.
Yeah, and clearly DU values it, right? They've hired you and focused on that, which I think is, essential component to own the brand and continue to evolve the brand. Massive, massive. Sarah, let's talk. Switch gears here a little bit as we look to wrap things up here a bit. Is how do you stay motivated and how do you stay excited about what you do? Clearly, we just discussed that in terms of some of the. We can hear you in your enthusiasm in terms of the health system and a number of other things you're working on. I want to take it a step further though, and for individuals that are perhaps have been in agencies for a long time and are ready to quote unquote own one single brand. I think that was always the classic. Like one day I'm gonna, get out of agency. I'm gonna own one single brand. I think. What has that been like, and that ability to focus, and any recommendations you might have as individuals are looking to make that transition?
Yeah, I mean, you don't get it in agency life, right? Even if you are working on a brand and you love it and you're passionate about it, that scope of work is going to end one day, right? What I would say to people who want to really own one brand is you got to feel good about the industry first.
Sure.
You got to be able to weather the industry storms first. And you got to, so I have a good friend of mine who was a great colleague. She was on my team as her first role in higher ed. And I did my best to kind of teach her about the nuances of the industry and that's just the way things are and all of that kind of stuff. But it wasn't her passion, and her passion industry is skiing and outdoor sports.
Yeah.
And she's back working in that now. And you can be so incredibly dedicated to advancing an industry and do that in multiple places. DU is not the first higher ed institution I've worked at, and it probably won't be the last. And I feel good about being able to say I work at University of Denver on days when it's hard to be in higher ed. Especially recently, there are going to be some things that executive leadership outside of marketing, there's some decisions they make or some statements they make that personally are really hard for me to swallow. But professionally, I believe enough in the value of a college degree and the value of higher education as a whole that I can keep waking up every morning, looking myself in the mirror, showing up to work every day and feel like I've contributed something net positive to society. And that's really what's kept me in the industry. It's imperfect. It's complicated. It's under a huge microscope right now. But at the end of the day, can I go to bed and say, my contribution to the world was good. That's what I look for. And so it's really my industry passion, and less about a singular brand within that industry. I'm not naive enough to know that, it's still a company. They still have revenue goals. They still have bottom lines. They still do layoffs. They still do reorganizations. They still make business decisions. And the faculty will bristle a little bit about looking at higher education as a business, especially nonprofit institutions. But Yeah, it's been so rewarding to feel like the work that I'm able to do is bigger than just selling a thing,
On the
you
thing.
know?
Yeah, making a buck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Your insights have been awesome, and just the things that you're doing, and the flexibility and the strategies that you're looking to employ at DU is really cool. I'm excited to watch and see you grow. It's been fun to see your career trajectory. So it's been really impressive. Where can people interact and engage with you, and then obviously DU, to say a little bit about where people can find out?
Yeah. So markets we're currently in right now, Denver and Chicago, and then you'll see us shortly in Colorado Springs and Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Nice.
which has been a fun thing to be like, why? But the data supports it. And then, yeah, me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. You can certainly find me. I'm, as you can tell, love to chat about this kind of stuff. So any questions, comments, anything along those lines, feel free to reach out.
You're the best. Thanks so much, Sarah. I appreciate your time. Chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Built to Convert. If you're serious about growth, don't just listen. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for new episodes that drop straight into your feed. Until next time, keep building.